Well, the real reason why inflation has come down is because energy prices have come down and food prices have come down. Internationally, food prices have been falling for the last year and a half, month after month, more or less. And of course, energy costs are considerably less than where they were a year ago. Inflation down. Of course, interest rates tend to, at the level they're at now, tend to slow down demand and affect consumer confidence. But for the moment, most of the decline in inflation we've seen has come really because of those international factors.
So everyone looking for this interest rate cut, of course. What do you think these inflation figures mean for the timing of that?
Well, there's going to be a meeting tomorrow of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of England, and they're going to look at the data. And our expectation generally is that they're not going to do anything very much at all. Interest rates will stay at the 5.25% where they are. And that would be mainly because, well, it all depends what happens in the US, of course. They will be waiting for the Fed to cut rates first. We've seen the European Central Bank not cutting rates when they met a little while ago. So I think there is going to be a coordinated cut, we're all suspecting, in interest rates, but we're not quite at that point yet. I think what the Bank of England will be particularly looking at is what's happening to services inflation, which is still just over 6% year on year. So although the overall inflation figures, the headline inflation figures, have fallen quite significantly, I think there are some concerning issues for them at any rate, which will probably keep rates where they are for the time being.
This all has political implications, of course. What do you think this lower inflation and perhaps at some point a cut in interest rates might mean for the timing of the UK election?
It will take a little bit of time for those changes to be reflected in people's willingness to go out and spend a little bit more. Consumer confidence has gone up and down a little bit over the last few months, so it was on its way up and then it sort of stabilized a little bit. So I think people are waiting to see what the overall impact of what's going on is going to be. First of all, of course, inflation being lower means that real wages are now increasing, so that's good news for them. There have been some tax cuts that have taken place. Some of them are becoming effective, of course, at the beginning of April, so they're going to see a little bit more of that. Minimum wage is going up. So people are going to feel a little bit wealthier, particularly if interest rates start coming down, mortgage rates start coming down. Now, the question is all this going to be sufficient to make a difference in terms of what the result of an election might be? The expectation is that perhaps not very much, and that is why we're now beginning to hear that the election is probably going to be in the autumn, and there may well be another fiscal event before that. In other words, giving a little bit more help to both firms and individuals just before the election is called. So we'll see what the difference, well, whether it makes a difference, in fact, to the final outcome.
You say it might take a while for people to start feeling this. What do these numbers mean for the average person? Because, of course, there are still some inflationary rises coming down the track. Mobile phone prices, water rates, for example.
No, you're absolutely right. And what's happening is of course, that service inflation still remains quite high. But the energy costs are a very substantial part of what the average household has been suffering from over the last year or so. And the lower you are down the income scale, what really matters is food and energy. And those at least are moving in the right direction. And we are likely to see in April a further decline in energy costs that people have to pay, because, of course, there is a sort of price cap, and that price cap is coming down by over 12%. So that's going to make quite a big difference. So people are going to feel that they're keeping a bit more of their wage increases. So I think that's going to be quite positive in terms of, what may happen to growth in the economy. And the overall forecasts are that there will be growth, perhaps, under 1%, but at least it will be better than just the 0.1% we achieved in 2023.
So do you think then that, given these figures, this will perhaps make it more likely that an election will be later rather than sooner? If
there is suddenly a change in people's views and the opinion polls that come out say now inflation has come down so significantly, we feel considerably happier with the government as is and the policies have really worked, then they might be tempted to have an early election. But I'm suspecting what they really want to see is growth really picking up. And for the moment, while interest rates are still high, that's not really happening. If you look, yes, services are doing okay, but manufacturing isn't. It's been falling for the more than a year now, month after month. So that's a bit of an issue, and people are not necessarily still feeling that there is enough certainty around them. So it might take a little bit of time. So the faster interest rates come down, actually, the easier it will be, I think, for the government to claim that growth can return.
Vicky, great to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us today. That's Vicky.